Hi there, my name is Dan, and welcome back to All One, the United Anatomy of Being. This is episode number 17 called Separating and Uniting Energy. And we're getting closer and closer towards assembling puzzle pieces to get an understanding of the non-physical level of being and the oneness or wholeness of being, and also why all of this exists. So again, it is very easy for humans to recognize that we have a physical level existence and a mind level existence. We have a physical body, we can perceive other physicalness all around us, and we know that we have thoughts and that we think. While certainly more subtle and thus more difficult to perceive or grasp or even remember amid such physical and mental dominance, we also recognize and accept that we have feelings and that they are different than our thoughts and different than our bodies. But by far the most difficult level of our existence to recognize and accept is our highest level, which cannot easily be perceived or experienced, but certainly can be perceived and experienced. But does exist and is the unchanging, permanently united, non-physical level of being. Hopefully refamiliarizing yourself with the motion of physical cycles and learning about the models of physical existence and learning about the perceived opposites and duality of the mind created by separation, an understanding and acceptance can be gained of the whole model of existence, and that the whole of our being includes a non-physical or spiritual level of existence. But from the most fundamental perspective, the two major levels of existence are the physical and the non-physical, or the body and the soul. Again, the physical is constantly moving and changing, seemingly separated, and consists of many incredibly varied and individual bodies, while the non-physical is unmoving, unchanging, completely united, and one intangible thing that has been historically referred to as God, or referred to here as the soul, the one, or pure being. But from a slightly more detailed perspective, there are four major levels of existence that have already been explained in previous episodes, including the physical or the body, the non-physical or the soul, separating energy or the mind level, and uniting energy or the heart level. Once again, there is a hierarchy to these levels. The body or physical level is the lowest in this hierarchy, while the soul or the non-physical is the highest. The non-physical exists whether there is a physical manifestation of it or not, or whether there is a physical experience or not. As an analogy, this is in some sense like the perception of our sun. When we can experience the sun, we have light. When we cannot experience the sun, we have darkness. But either way, the sun still exists and is always shining. So, how do the mind and heart levels play into this model? Aren't they also non-physical in their existence and in our experience? While we can recognize that thought and feeling exist in us, they certainly seem as intangible as the non-physical, unchanging, fully united soul. But the mind and heart levels are energy levels where the mind is the dominant energy of the physical level, and the heart level is the dominant energy of the non-physical level. It could be more comprehensively described as the mind level being the language of the physical level, and the heart level being the language of the non-physical level. Both the mind and the heart are respectively the tools of perception for separating and uniting energies in beings with minds and hearts. Thought and feeling are highly connected and highly affect each other, just as separating and uniting energies are highly connected and inextricably interactive. While the mind can also perceive and certainly think about union, and the heart can perceive and certainly feel separation, the dominant perception of the mind is separation, and the dominant perception of the heart is union. And both separating and uniting energies are together what make the creation and existence of a physical level from the non-physical possible. And we're going to describe this process in the next episode. But before the physical world could be created at the time of the Big Bang, with the physical particles continuing to join in more and more complex ways to form all that we see and all that physically exists around us, these two energies had to exist. Without these energies, there is nothing physical. And if all the energy that exists in the universe could possibly be turned off, everything physical would simply disappear or cease to exist the instant the energy is eliminated. We can also refer to Einstein's famous formula for relativity, where E equals mc squared, meaning energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. However, this equation can also be used to solve for mass. In this version, m equals E divided by c squared, meaning mass equals energy divided by the speed of light squared. And essentially what this means is that anything with mass is simply energy slowed down. So again, without energy, nothing with mass can exist. And this is exactly what happened at the time of the Big Bang. While the specific activity at the very instant of the Big Bang is far from scientifically proven, at that exact instant, all that was released from the Big Bang was energy moving at the speed of light at unfathomable temperatures. What is scientifically postulated and accepted by many scientists is that there was also a slight but immediate cooling within nano and milliseconds of the Big Bang. Energy slowed and cooled to form the smallest quantum building blocks, of which scientists are now aware and have named quarks, leptons, and muons, among a few others. In further milliseconds, those smallest building blocks further slowed, cooled, and joined to form more fundamental subatomic particles called protons, neutrons, and electrons, of which you are all familiar. Protons, neutrons, and electrons then joined to form atoms, the first and simplest of which was hydrogen, and which has already been explained is unsurprisingly the most abundant element in our universe. So a separating energy enabled the creation of physical particles, while a uniting energy enabled simple unions of these particles to create all the same and smallest building blocks that at a fundamental physical level make up everything in physical existence. And this all began within milliseconds and seconds of the Big Bang, as the energy released slowed from the speed of light at which it moves. The continuing separation from the source of the Big Bang resulted in further slowing and cooling, and the continuing and simultaneous uniting resulted in more complex unions, which eventually created helium, lithium, beryllium, all the other elements, and eventually, over much more time, everything that physically exists in this universe, including life. Again, everything that physically exists in the universe is made up of the same smallest building blocks, which are even more fundamentally energy just slowed down. So you, me, your computer or your cell phone, this planet, our sun, and the entire physical universe are all comprised on the lowest fundamentally physical level of the exact same physical stuff. Simultaneously, all these things are comprised on a higher level of simply and only energy. And simultaneously, on the highest level, all these things are only and most simply being. It's not easy for the human mind to comprehend that these same things can exist in different forms under different circumstances. And it's even more difficult for the human mind to comprehend that these same things can exist in different forms simultaneously on different levels. But they do. As a simple, tangible example of how something can exist in different forms under different circumstances, we can observe water molecules in their various forms. If the temperature range is between 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius and 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius, then water, or the collection of molecules with 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, is water as we know it, barring, of course, any conditional changes such as the introduction of salt or pressure. But when the temperature is cooled below 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 Celsius, water changes from a liquid to a solid. It is still fundamentally the same thing. It is still a collection of molecules with 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. However, we often tend to forget that this solid is the exact same thing as water. We no longer even call it water. We, of course, call it ice. Similarly, if water is heated above 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius, water transforms into a gas that can no longer even be seen. While it is still comprised of the exact same stuff as water, a collection of molecules with 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, we again no longer call it water. We call it steam when it is in the process of changing from water to a gas, but after that we call it vapor and rarely even think about it because we can no longer see it. It is no longer tangible, but it still exists and is still a collection of molecules with 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Temperature, speed, and pressure play very significant roles in the state changes or levels of all things. And in this example, regardless of the state, be it a solid, liquid, or gas, or ice, water, or vapor, we are still talking about the exact same thing. Additionally, that anything can exist on different levels simultaneously is more challenging to understand, at least from a physical perspective. Anything that physically exists is, on one level, exactly what we perceive it to be. I am a human being. You are a different human being. The earth is the earth, the moon is the moon, and the sun is the sun. But physically, all these things also simultaneously exist on a molecular levels, on atomic levels, and on quantum levels. On the atomic or subatomic level, me, you, the earth, the moon, and the sun are all collections of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And on a quantum level, all these things are simultaneously the exact same quarks, leptons, and muons. What does get more difficult to understand is that all physical things also exist on other levels, including a separating energy level, a uniting energy level, and ultimately on a non-physical level of simple being. So what are these energies that exist at a higher level than, or underlying, the physical level we know so well? Well, science has identified 4 fundamental energies in the universe, which include gravitational force, electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force, and weak nuclear force. We are all quite aware of gravitational force, at least on some level, because we experience gravity every day. We all also have some awareness of electromagnetic force, at least on a very simple level, because we all understand magnets and how they work. Few of us likely have much awareness of strong nuclear force and weak nuclear force, but these are energies within atoms that either keep the protons and neutrons within an atomic nucleus together, or contribute to the decay or change of those subatomic particles of an atomic nucleus. And apart from scientists, or more particular physicists, very few of us have awareness of the complexities and interactions of these 4 fundamental energies. But ultimately, there are 2 main categories of energy: energy which separates, and energy which unites. Most energies, under various circumstances, or from various perspectives, can both separate and unite, despite a dominant nature for each type. A very simple example are, again, magnets, which, if faced in the right direction, will attract each other and unite, and if faced oppositely, they will repel each other and separate. Another simple example is gravity here on Earth. Drop a ball or jump out of a tree and you can experience the undeniable energy which will pull you or the ball right back to the ground. But there are also scientific theories which postulate circumstances where even gravity can have a separating effect. And additionally, and to address this from a slightly different perspective to demonstrate how energies can both separate and unite, anything that is uniting separated things is also separating those things from the state of separation itself. This is a little confusing, but again, another perspective. And anything that is separating, uniting things is uniting them to a state of separation. These two energy categories that separate and unite are equal and always in balance. When this is said, just like in the earlier examples of balance on the physical level, there may not always be balance at each level or at each particular point in time, but there is always balance in time or in total at the highest level. This is a theory that has been hypothesized in science as the zero energy universe, which proposes that the total amount of energy or aggregate amount of energy in the entire universe is zero, as the total of positive energy in the form of matter is exactly offset by what is referred to as negative energy in the form of gravity. This is getting scientific, and I apologize, but it's all important to hear, and it will contribute again to this greater understanding. But what this really means is that the total amount of separating energy is exactly equal to the total amount of uniting energy. This hypothesis is a truth of physical existence, despite the mind being an inadequate tool to fully perceive it, because a full understanding of uniting energy is more dominantly the realm of the heart. But it supports the model of the universe that the separating energy, in balance with the uniting energy, must naturally follow this path in the two-dimensional representation of the arc that has been well used in prior episodes. Everything in the physical universe has separated and will eventually unite back or return to the source from which it originally separated. Again, both energy categories are completely necessary for creation. For one thing to create many, there must be a separation and then an ultimate joining or rejoining in various ways to create all the different things that exist on the physical level. So there cannot be one with the other. There cannot be one without the other. There cannot be separating energy without uniting energy, or the physical level would not exist. Now imagine within milliseconds of the Big Bang, when the smallest physical building blocks were created, instead of continuing to unite, these individual smallest particles could avoid the uniting energy and go off in the direction sent by the outward separating force of the Big Bang indefinitely without ever joining or uniting. These smallest building blocks or particles would just keep on traveling outward and in time be completely separated from anything and everything else without any ability to become anything else. If there was no uniting force or energy following the creation of the most fundamental particles of building blocks of the universe from energy, every fundamental particle or building block in the universe would eventually be entirely alone in the infinite universe, and nothing but fundamental particles or building blocks would exist. But this is not what happened after the Big Bang. And if it did, what kind of universe would exist? All physical existence would be identical and boring. Everything would eventually be alone and the same. And what would be the point? So there is a reason for the existence and inextricable connection and balance between separating and uniting energy, which will be explained a little further shortly. The point here is to understand the existence, connection, and importance of separating and uniting energies, which lie in between the non-physical and the physical, and make the physical from the non-physical possible. And the point is also to reiterate the connection between the mind level as the dominant tool of perception for separating energy, and the heart level as the dominant tool for perception for uniting energy. And from here, we can begin to answer the question of why all of this is. Why does the physical universe exist? And why do we exist? And in the next episode, we're going to begin to put some of these puzzle pieces together a little more fully, at least regarding the physical and the non-physical, or the body, the soul, and the whole. We're not really getting deep into the mind level or the heart level yet. They are coming and following parts of this series, but we're going to get a greater understanding of the non-physical and how the physical was created from it in the next episode. So I thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.